Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time there was a sweet little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, and there was nothing that she would not have given to the child. Once she gave the girl a little cape with a hood of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else. So she was always called Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, here are a piece of cake and a bottle of milk. Take them to your grandmother. She is feeling sick and weak, and they will do her good. Set out on your walk before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly, and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you get into her room, don't forget to say, 'Good morning,' and don't peep into every corner before you do it." "I will be very careful," Little Red Riding Hood promised her mother. The grandmother lived out in the wood, a long walk from the village, and just as Little Red Riding Hood entered the wood, a wolf met her. Little Red Riding Hood did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood," said he. "Thank you kindly, Mr. Wolf." "Where are you walking so early this morning, Little Red Riding Hood?" he asked. "To my grandmother's," she answered. "And what have you got in your apron?" "Cake and milk. Yesterday was baking day, so my poor sick grandmother is to have something good to eat to make her stronger." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "A long walk farther on in the wood. Her house stands under the 3 large oak trees, and the nut trees are just below. You surely must know it," replied Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf thought to himself, "What a tender young creature! What a nice plump mouthful! She will taste even better than the old woman. I must be very crafty and sneaky so I can catch both." So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Red Riding Hood, and then he said, "See, Little Red Riding Hood, how pretty the flowers are. Why don't you look around? I believe, too, that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk along gravely and seriously, as if you were going to school, while everything else out here in the wood is merry and happy." Little Red Riding Hood raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees, and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, "Suppose I take grandmother a fresh bouquet of flowers. That would please her very much. It is so early in the day that I shall still get to her house in good time." And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers. And whenever she had picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one farther on, and ran after it, and so got deeper and deeper into the wood. Meanwhile the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" Grandmother called from her bedroom. "Little Red Riding Hood," replied the wolf in a very high pretend voice, trying to sound like the girl. "I am bringing cake and milk. Open the door." "Lift the latch and come in," called out the grandmother. "I am too weak and cannot get up." The wolf lifted the latch, the door sprang open, and without saying a word the wolf went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. That is, he ate her up completely. Then he put on her nightgown, dressed himself in her nightcap, laid himself in her bed under the covers, and closed up the curtains that went all the way around the bed. Little Red Riding Hood, however, had been running about picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother, and set out on the way to her. Little Red Riding Hood was surprised to find the cottage door standing open, and when she went into the room she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today, but on other days I like coming to see grandmother so much." Little Red Riding Hood called out, "Good morning," but she received no answer, so she went to the bed and pulled open the curtains. There she thought she saw her grandmother with her cap pulled far down over her face and looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have!" "All the better to hear you with, my child," was the reply. "But, grandmother, what big eyes you have!" she said. "All the better to see you with, my dear." "But, grandmother, what large hairy hands you have!" "All the better to hug you with, my dear." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have!" "All the better to eat you with." And scarcely had the wolf said this than with one big bounding jump he was out of bed and swallowed up Little Red Riding Hood. When the wolf had appeased his appetite and his tummy felt full, he lay down again in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loud. The huntsman was just passing the house and thought to himself, "How very loudly the old woman is snoring! I must just see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed he saw that the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find you here, you old sinner?" said he. "I have long sought to catch you." Then, just as the huntsman was going to fire his big gun at the wolf, it occurred to him that the wolf might have devoured the grandmother, and that she might still be saved. So he did not shoot his gun, but took a big pair of the grandmother's scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. When he had made 2 snips, he saw the little red cap of the riding hood shining brightly. And then he made 2 snips more, and the little girl sprang out, saying, "Oh, how frightened I have been! How dark it was inside the wolf!" And after that the old grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Little Red Riding Hood, however, quickly fetched great stones with which they filled the wolf's belly, and when he awoke he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy that he collapsed at once and fell down dead. Then all 3 were delighted. The huntsman pulled off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the milk which Little Red Riding Hood had brought, and revived, and felt much stronger. But Little Red Riding Hood thought to herself, "As long as I live I will never by myself leave the path to run into the wood, when my mother has told me not to and forbidden me to do so." And because she followed her own very good advice, she lived happily ever after.